It's the Pikey Loughz Show, Talking Taipans. Chris Pike and Alex Loughton come to you with everything that is 100% Taipans. Let's go. It's Talkin Taipans.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pikey Loughz Show. We're talking Taipans and we're coming to you after a win. The Taipans got back on the winners list on Monday night, so we're excited about that. Not just because it was a win, but the performance was worth celebrating. There was a lot to like about it, so we'll dissect all of that on this week's show and look ahead to a big game now on Saturday against the undefeated Melbourne United. I'm Chris Pike, but as always, joined by the Cairns Taipans legend himself, Alex Loughton. How do we find you this week?
No, very good. Very exciting to see that W. A bit of relief, I think, on the collective breath of the Taipans faithful, and just great to see some of the young players step up. So I can't wait to delve straight in and just dissect all the things that made it such a positive return to the winner's circle for the boys.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show is proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life. And Statton's Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care.
It was. But before that, 2 days earlier, it wasn't so positive. Unfortunately, the Taipans slipped to 1-6, and that finish to the game against the Breakers was a concern because for the second game in a row, the Taipans let a double-digit lead slip, and somehow we let Lamar Patterson find some form as well. And as you said last week, you don't want to wake up the bear, but unfortunately, the Taipans found a way to wake him up. So 1-6, there was no other option but to win on Monday night, was there? And I liked a lot of things that Mike Kelly did. I liked his attitude in that game. But at the end of the day, to be now 2-6, it's a familiar position. Taipans fans will remember that the Taipans were in this exact same position last season, ended up making the semi-finals, one game away from the grand final. So we're well placed now to make a charge.
Well, that first game against New Zealand, obviously Lamar Patterson comes back in that fourth quarter. But if you look at the numbers, Machado had 25, Oliver 19, big contributions from the Stars. But then on the bench, there's only a total of 8 points off the bench. And that's just not going to get it done down the stretch. And thankfully, when we talk about 2 days later, the bench did come alive and they did make big contributions, and in particular, George Blagojevic. Then you can see that wins are possible, even without a new ball, adding all of his dimension to the game. So, but yeah, that loss against New Zealand on the Saturday night, Lamar Patterson, he's pretty close to getting a plane ticket back home.
Was. At halftime, I think he had it.
And Shane Hill was ripping into him and still holding back his breath, but you could see he just wanted to just tear him. Tear him one, and he was just commenting. Obviously, he looks out of shape and he's quite heavy. But he was playing in Puerto Rico in the off season. Like it wasn't like he wasn't doing anything. Yep. He was actually playing. But he's pretty skilled, pretty talented, and he did take Breakers on his back and led them into the promised land for that W. I mean, a much needed W for them. Whoever lost that game was bottom of the ladder, so there's a lot at stake. And then I think him personally, for Patterson, there was a lot at stake. So credit to him. He finished with a pretty solid sort of a finish with 22, and a lot of those in that fourth quarter. But yeah, just the Taipans holding that lead and then just not putting 4 quarters together just drew the ire of the fans and just outrage on social media and of course just venting look, I think
just quickly, the game finished with a 15-3 run for the Breakers. What happened? What did you see that went wrong?
Well, they found the cracks. I mean, Lamar Patterson was just able to go to work and just bully his way into the rack and draw fouls. The drawing the fouls and getting to the line, it just seems to be something that the Taipans haven't been able to get on top of. So it's a skill. Like obviously it's a skill and a consistency thing, I guess. So being able to hold your ground and not cause the refs to make that call, it's hard because you're just tempted to put the hand in there and not quite get the body in the right position there. So they're going to have to really find ways to collectively as a team get the stops that they need. I mean, maybe they do have to mix it up a bit late in the fourth just to throw different defenses at it if it's not working. Like, they're going to have to make those adjustments a lot sooner, or at least find something that they can go to that just disrupts them and puts them off out of that groove when they're on that tear, coming home with a wet sail.
And in that game as well, the biggest difference from the two games was the fact that on Saturday, Scott Machado and Cam Oliver, like you said, couldn't have done much more. They combined for 44 points between them, 16 rebounds, 13 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks. They shot the ball pretty well between them. I think 15 of 32. They made their threes. They were 6 of 13 from 3. They couldn't have possibly done any more, but I don't think you could really say that anyone else on the team played anywhere near their potential, which was the problem. Luckily, it changed on Monday, but that was probably the biggest glaring factor from Saturday.
When Jerick was out, everyone kind of went, "Oh no!" Like he's been so solid. So I actually thought Ngatai was actually pretty solid coming into that starting lineup in that first, for both games and filling that position pretty well. I think he's really started to show what he can do. And I thought he maintained that level of play from that 3 position. Deng might have been a bit quiet on that first New Zealand game, but then you look at the contribution from the bench, and that's just not going to get it done. I mean, if I'm hoping for that 25 points, solid consistency each time, like a Sydney Kings would do or Melbourne United, 8 is not going to get it done. And then the flip side for the second game, they certainly lifted in a huge way from the bench and led by Blagojevic, who Noi was pulled from that second game pretty quickly in the piece, and that gave George a chance to really show what he could do. And in 15 minutes, he's put in like 10 points. He was active on the glass at 4. He got a couple of steals. Like he's just a bit longer and able to disrupt and get a few things rolling. And then he was off to the races. Yeah. Like he was loving it. And I just thought he was the biggest difference for that second game that just gave them some life from that second New Zealand game. We've got sort of 18 points off the bench, a vast improvement, another 10 points added from the bench that you could just see the enthusiasm swell and actually they go, we can actually get this done. And obviously no Jerick in that second game as well. The back's against the wall. So, I'm sure Mike Kelly was just pleading for someone just to lift and bring it. And, Ngatai was able to hold down that starter spot as well. Noi came to life, I think, once he realised people were getting subbed in if he didn't perform. Yep. He was a bit more at a higher level, friskiness-wise. As soon as he stepped back on the floor, he knew he had to make a positive contribution. So he played well. Majok Deng really came to life as well and really capitalised on some great feeds from Machado. Just one bounce, boings on the rim, throwing it down. And the juices were flowing, Pikey. The juices were there, and you could see it, and the relief, and because they put 4 quarters together. They put 4 quarters together and maintained the lead. And I don't think there was ever a point where it really snuck into danger territory. It might be 4 or 6 points.
I think
maybe
6
that it
a
came
couple
down
times
to
in the fourth quarter.
6 a couple of times, but then and then they were able to stretch it out again. So it was much needed. It was a crucial win. But I think the headline for the newspapers is like, by George, we did it. By George, we did it. And by George, they literally did it. And I just thought it was great to see the young fella come out and produce and give Mike Kelly that confidence to really lock down some more playing time.
Well, not only that, but I think a lot of credit to Mike Kelly. We know he's a nice guy. We know he doesn't necessarily like to play the tough sort of headmaster type role, but when you're 1-6, you have to get tough. So the thing that I loved the most was that they couldn't afford to have a bad start. Kouat Noi didn't do what he was meant to be doing on defense. Rob Lowe got an easy basket up one end, and that was it. Mike Kelly took him off. He put George in, and I think that's when the whole tone of the game changed, because all of a sudden everyone on the Taipans team knew that we have to deliver right now, or I'm not going to be playing. This team's going to be 1-7, and there's no coming back from that. I think that was the moment. So I think Mike Kelly deserves enormous credit, because I don't think he takes Kouat Noi out of that game in any of the previous games just because it's not desperation stakes. So I think he did it because he knew that he had to make a stand, and he made a stand. And what George did when he came on straight away, he hit that 3. It was at least over 2 defenders. It might have even been 3. He hit that contested
That
three.
was his first triple of his career, right?
Yeah. And then straight after that, he gets the offensive rebound, gets the putback, and then, most importantly, Kouat comes back on, and I think he hit 7 quick points to finish the first quarter. And to me,
he knew what was at stake, didn't he? He knew that he had to live.
And I think he ends up playing his best game with the Taipans. I think Majok Deng, like you touched on, that was his best game with the Taipans as well, because he was so aggressive. We know he can shoot the ball, but he had 3 huge dunks where when you've got 7 foot plus wingspan, you're unstoppable when you take it to the rack, and when they also know you can shoot. I think that was his best game. I think it was Jordan Nartai's best game for what he did. And it was obviously George Blagojevic's best game as well. So many guys stepped up, and Scott Machado was then able to set up everybody and finish with 13 assists. And Cam Oliver was able to. Cam Oliver could just chip in when he needed to. It was just so much to like. But I think it all comes back to what Mike Kelly did a minute into the game.
Well, and Oliver didn't. The weight of the game wasn't on his shoulders, as you said. He could just chip in when he needed to. I mean, at only 8 points, he didn't need to, just unload full energy for the full four quarters, because he had some backup now. Exactly. Like, it must have been a welcome relief to Machado and Oliver that Machado could just kind of pick apart those on balls, and when Deng would slip out, he just found that perfect little spot that almost led Deng onto the little one bounce and elevate off the 1 foot. For the throwdown. So there was just the welcome relief. I could just see the facial expression of Machado and Oliver just kind of not having to do all the work. And for the New Zealand Breakers, just looked a bit tired. Lamar Patterson went back into that mode where the coach is probably sliding that plane ticket a little bit closer to him on his side of the desk.
Well, the longer the game went, the less and less he saw of the ball. They just wouldn't pass it to him.
Yeah. Well, and he looked tired though too. You could see they're just wearing a bit, and that's when your bench should be coming alive to give you that boost. And the good teams can win those tough games because it's a collective effort, and you're not just gassing those starting 5. So it really positive signs with no Jarek. That's always keeping in mind, like, because he can really turn it on. But it was good to see, obviously, that when the chips are down, the players are ready to take their moment. So I think you're right. I think Mike Kelly drew a line in the sand. He's not going to stand for it anymore. If you're not performing, you're coming out because we don't have time to mess about. So that was a great message. And when George left, then Noi had to lift. So these players stepping up has caused the stars to make sure they're lifting their game and not just casual cat going in and just thinking, all right, I'm going to get my minutes regardless. Well, guess what? You're not. You're not getting your minutes regardless because now there's capable players, hopefully, that can perform consistently. And that's often the big thing. Can George Blagojevic replicate that and do it again? Well, that time will tell. Time will tell, and we'll keep a close eye on all that. But just a positive way to finish and a much needed win, obviously.
What did you feel the emotion was? Was it a sense of relief? Was it excitement? Both amongst the players and I guess the fans. What did you sense the emotion was like once they knew that this team was actually going to be delivering a win, but also a really good 4-quarter performance?
Well, I think they looked at each other in the eyeball and said, we want to be for real. We want more like this. And thank goodness, we just felt like this game was accomplished. Like that's what I saw when Machado looked at, Oliver and the players, like they almost eyeballed each other, straight down the line and were like, all right, guys, lock that in. Like whatever we did there, let's lock that in. And let's to a man, move forward with that in mind, because I think there was a lot of soul searching, a lot of staring at themselves in the mirror leading up to this point. And after each loss, you would be thinking, where are the answers coming from? That game, we saw some. That game, 4 quarters together. That game, Mike Kelly draws a line. Is that the moment that this season can build upon now? We had the stumbling blocks, had the start of season jitters. We've had the feeling out stage where there is no new bill. This is what the lads have got to work with. So there is that decisive moment now that they've had to step up, and they've got a massive challenge against Melbourne United, who are waiting at home to deliver on Jock Landale's promises of an undefeated season.
Okay, Loughz, quick chance now to take a look at our MVP tracker for this season. after 2 more games in round 4 of the NBL for the Taipans. And it's obviously thanks to Cairns Total Physio that we'll be presenting or keeping track of our MVP winner here on the Pikey Loughz Show this season. So going back to Saturday's game against the Breakers, and the votes are in, and we've got Scott Machado with the 3, Cam Oliver with 2, and Kouat Noi with the 1 vote. And then Monday night, in the big win against the Breakers, we've got Majok Deng with the 3, George Blagojevic, great to see him amongst the votes with 2, and Kouat Noi with another vote there for his performance for the Taipans. So that means on our leaderboard on the Cairns Total Physio MVP tracker Loughz, we've got Cam Oliver on 16, Scott Machado on 13. I think that just shows the load that they've carried so far, but we're now seeing some other guys begin to rise up the leaderboard. We've got Kouat Noi on 5, Majok Deng on 5, Moko Jarek, who's now missed a couple of games, but he's still on 4, and then we've got Jared Kenny and George Blagojevic on 2. We'll be back again next week with another set of votes from Cairns Total Physio. Yeah, and we'll get to that, I guess, after our interview, and we'll look at what lies ahead. But I mean, just quickly, what lies ahead is Melbourne, Illawarra, Melbourne, Perth. So that's what immediately lies ahead. So they have no choice. They have to back up what they did on Monday night, or else that good performance can be quickly wiped away if all of a sudden you're 2-7 or 2-8 or 2-9.
Yeah, no, and it's the as Matt Smith will comment on in just a moment with the Statton's Plumbing Company interview of the week. The life in the bubble is going to be an interesting one because it really requires a lot of mental toughness. You're restricted into in stuff that you can do off the court. Those things that help you balance out those road trips is not really accessible now because the guys are under such strict limitations. So it's really going to be quite a battle in the bubble, and you can come out of it 0-8 in the bubble in the NBL Cup, or you can try and build upon your last game and hopefully get some W's on the board down there.
Or you could have some silverware and $300,000. So there's the positive way to look at it.
Exactly. I mean, who would want a bit of hardware and some cash? So yeah, I'm sure that will go to the club for their purposes. But maybe it's an end of year party for the lads for all the craziness of the year.
Now, before we get to Matt Smith, I believe, speaking of silverware, there might be some more in the Loughz Trophy cabinet right now. Is there?
We had a bit of fun on the Monday night. The crowd capacity was teeming. It was high octane action. So no, it was a bit of fun with a couple of old heads for the Gryffindors on a Monday night. But just fun to run around and great to be able to still play the game with the lads, and it's just been really enjoyable. Getting up and down and flexing the muscle from the 3-point line, all that sort of stuff, and knowing that you can still slightly do what you could do before, just physically a bit more sore afterwards.
Has that got you in NBL 1 shape, Loughz?
I don't know what the levels are. I think for sure it goes NBL, and then it goes Monday nights, and then it goes NBL 1.
Oh, there we
so
go.
I mean, it really is a middle tier kind of league. It sits all by itself. Monday nights at CBI.
Oh, fantastic. What can we expect from your old mate Matt Smith?
Let's dive straight into the interview with Matt Smith. He's got some great insights from what the lads are producing on the floor at the moment, and also break down a bit of what's to expect in the bubble. Just take a listen. Well, joining me now on the Statton's Plumbing Company interview of the week, it's a man that needs no introduction to the NBL. Is famous for what were you famous for again? What was that stat?
Field goal percentage leader in 2006-07, I think.
Should we do that again?
No, I think that actually sums my career basically.
Right, should we delve straight into what transpired on the courts there at CBI on a Wednesday night, a postponed game, the big grand final finale? What happened out on the floor then, Matty?
Well, we beat up on a bunch of 15 to 16-year-olds. Yourself, obviously, Aaron Grabo and I, along with Jimmy Mitchell and young Kurt Arwin, and young Kurt Arwin is 32, went to work on a bunch of high schoolers. I feel good about it. I feel like a big man right now. As you said, I talk a lot. It was good. I had fun.
Now, there's usually 5,000 fans at the Taipans game. What do you think the capacity was there on court one there tonight?
Look, there were a solid 15 or 16 people there. Most of them didn't like us, from what I could gather, but that's okay. It's nice to play away, even if you're in your home stadium. But it's fun. It's nice to get out there with you guys and have a bit of a run around. And I become exponentially obnoxious the lower the level of play. So you would have noticed during the NBL days, I didn't actually say a lot. But as we go down those lower grades, I start chatting more and more. So
what you're saying is the longer your retirement goes, the better you were when you played, the louder you were at the time?
Well, it's come down to most of what I did is really pre-internet. So there's actually no way of telling. So I could tell people that I did a whole bunch of really weird and wonderful things. You can't actually check.
Well, that's a unique way of looking at it, and it probably is best left without any access to social media. Now, moving to the Taipans games, most people that go to the matches will undoubtedly be pleased with the pleasing baritone that occupies their eardrums. You've got the front seat, the man on the mic. What's that role actually called?
The court announcer, so I get to retain a bit of dignity and don't have to run around and hype up the crowd. And I interpret a few referee signals and drop my voice a couple of octaves and try to make sure people know what's going on.
Just for a bit of proof of that, can you just give me a Machado, 2 points?
Scott Machado, 2 points.
Nailed it. Now, the Taipans, obviously a huge win to start the season, and it's been a bit of a bumpy ride since, but order is slightly restored with the win against New Zealand. What did you make of the game on Monday night?
Yeah, I thought it was really great, Victor. Every time you're coming off a bit of a losing streak, it's nice to get that monkey off your back. But if you're Mike Kelly, you're looking at Scott Machado and Cam Oliver didn't really light up the scoreboard as much as they have been. So they're looking to get that contribution from those other guys. And George Blagojevic had his best game in the NBL so far and was really quite handy. Majok was really, really frisky, getting out in transition and throwing down some massive dunks. And Kouat, who got dragged early, found his way back into the game and was really big for him.
Now, Mirko Jeric out for those 2 games. He's been a big factor in a lot of these matches where he's able to really, really pile points on the board. Were you a bit nervous about the outcome when he was definitely ruled out of the matches?
Obviously, Mirko is a huge part of what they do. You know, usually the guy takes that first shot and he's such an emotional, barometer for what they're trying to achieve. But even on the bench, he's up and down, yelling stuff, carrying on and making sure that the guys feel his presence. I think Naitai had a really good game. He was solid defensively. He got unlucky on a few foul calls, but he did what they needed him to do and was able to spot those minutes for him. So all in all, I'd say that Mike Kelly's feeling a lot better this week than he probably was last week.
Yeah, look, I thought Naitai was very solid in that game, and obviously George Blagojevic, he had an unbelievable game. Is this what the Taipans need to be able to string these wins together? Is have these solid contributions coming off the bench?
I think that's what any championship team needs, really. It's the stars that get you there, but it's the role players that get you over the line. It's the guys that you can find those extra 10, 8 points when maybe you didn't expect it. And the way they go about getting it's important. So Blagojevic got his, working the glass, running the floor in transition, shooting the open shots. He wasn't trying to do too much. He let the game come to him. And so he imposed his will without needing the ball, which left the guys like Machado and Cam Oliver to still do their thing.
Taipans obviously heading down to Melbourne. There'll be a lot of games in the Melbourne Hub, then the NBL Cup, the inaugural Cup. How do you see the landscape unfolding for the Taipans as they head down into Victoria?
It'll be interesting. It'll depend on the youth, the young guys, and how well they can stick together, because it's going to be mentally challenging for them to be in there all the time without any real distractions. It'll be a challenge, but I think, like I said, the youth of the Taipans will probably help them. There's not a lot of guys who've got young kids in that team. Obviously, Cam Oliver's got a couple. For the most part, they're young men who will enjoy each other's company and hang out.
Now, Cam Oliver, obviously the human highlight reel. Which one's been your favourite dunk, I guess, so far? Is it the obvious one? Which feats of athleticism really did you enjoy the most from your front seat at the courts?
I think everyone's favourite was down the lane on the Sydney Kings, all of the Sydney Kings at once. I'm not entirely sure what Craig Moller was thinking here. Must have got a flashback to football when you can try to tackle people, but he's been incredible. He's an incredible athlete. I don't know, we've had athletes before with the Taipans, but I don't know that we've had an athlete with that kind of game before. So Cam's been really special, and the crowd loves him, and it's really great that he signed on for those 2 years.
It's pretty similar to what we see from Matt Smith on Monday nights at Cairns basketball. Do you see the comparisons or make those comparisons in your mind?
I definitely flex my muscles a lot. Both of them.
Matt Smith, we'll end it there. Thanks so much for joining us on the Pikey Loughz Show.
No worries, mate. I'll catch you.
Great to hear from the big man, Matty Smith. Always a jovial sort of character, and loves his court announcing at the games, Pikey, with his pleasing baritone. He's a great character to have around the club. Certainly, we thank him for his time on the interview.
Yeah, he's always got great insights, and obviously any time a former player can offer his thoughts, but he's got a unique perspective now from that courtside position, and he's probably followed on from your old Lockie Reed days over in Perth, Loughz, and he likes to get the Orange Army fired up.
Yeah, well, he's a funny one because, I mean, he played in the Catalini era, and we probably should have talked more about that era because there was a lot of craziness going on. So he certainly prides himself on all the shenanigans that they used to get up to.
I think I think last year you spoke to him about that on the show, how he was it the 55-point game between the two of them.
Yeah. So no, 50. They had 53, I think, between the two of them, and Catalini had 52 of them.
Yep.
Or something like that. Yeah. He's certainly a lovable 6'11 and a half, nearly 7 footer, but he doesn't like to be 7 foot. He's 6'11 and a half.
Now, Loughz, another thing that's popped up on social media this week. A couple of weeks back, we talked about the dunk from Cam Oliver and talked about if it was the best dunk in NBL history, and you brought up another dunk from one Ira Clark over a former Taipans big man.
I didn't bring it up.
I think you did bring it up. But now all of a sudden the footage has emerged on it too.
Well, it looks like old King Podge at Cairns Local put it up there. Then old Hooley down in Melbourne got a hold of it and thought he'd chime in. And I was like, well, hang on a minute, fellas. I've got to come back with something. So I just was walking to the car with my son when the fans are like, oh, I saw you on the socials this week, Loughz. I was like, oh, really? Oh, tell me more, feed me. And then they're like, it was the dunk for Ira Clark. And I was just like, that's it. I was like, Liam, get in the car. And I was like, I got to find this thing, and then I got to find my answer to it. So Liam's like, are we going home, Dad? I said, just hold on, son, just hold on. And I'm searching for something here, and I was like, Alex Loughton dunk on Alex Pledger, on the Breakers. So I find that, and I just put it in the feed of like, oh, look, Hooley, look, this is all I got, and it was dunk on, Pledger and CJ Bruton sliding in there, and Pledger goes down, and then, the lads get around us. So that's my one claim to fame in terms of a retort to the Ira Clark dunk. But, the one thing I remember about Ira Clark coming down the lane after I KO'd was that I was helping a point guard that was just playing Olay defense, just moving out the way. And then I went to help, and then he found the drop-off to Ira Clark steaming down the paint. And I just remember the power on that dunk. Like, he just clocked me with his knee in his chest. I was just like, in my chest, and I was just like, oh, like, that was a powerful dunk. Like, if that's not, one of the best ones, I don't know what is. But, you put your grill out there, and, mate, I don't know. At least I can say that I was there in the game for 14 years. So I've got some of my own memories, not just the ones where I got dunked on. But I'm sure that Aaron Baines, who he contests a lot of shots in the NBA, a lot of dunks in the NBA, and he gets a high percentage of blocks, but he also gets dunked on, and he just doesn't seem to worry about it at all.
You can't be a shot blocker without getting dunked on. I'm sure even the legends like Dikembe Mutombo would have got dunked on too.
Yeah, and I'm not a shot blocker by any stretch, so I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, unless you didn't step away. Is there anything worse than watching a defender step away and let someone dunk it?
Well, might have saved my dignity, but no, it wasn't an enjoyable thing, of course. But you got to wear it and move on. Like what are you going to do?
And now, what are we? About 10 or 11 years later, and we're still seeing the footage of it. So these things last a lifetime.
Thank you, Pikey. Let's move on.
Let's move on, because Saturday. It's not in Melbourne, it's in Bendigo. I'm not sure the Taipans have ever played in Bendigo. I'm not sure if you have, Loughz, but...
Just the pre-seasons.
Yeah,
and,
that's right. Pre-seasons tournament a few years back, you're right, yep.
We're well acquainted with the regional areas, Ballarat, Bendigo. We'd always do our promos down there. All those kinds of areas of Victoria, even Traralgon. We've had pre-season tournament. So the guys will be well adverse to the conditions down there. But they got a great court, great
nice
sort of
stadium,
club there. Yep. NBL 1. Bendigo Braves, great setup. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to, it'll be a very professional setup down there. Obviously, TV games as well. We'll get a full dose of what regional, pretty close to the city really, but regional Victoria can provide. And looking forward to the hub and the 8 games in close proximity. But Melbourne United will be a tough challenge, no doubt.
It's an interesting challenge because right now they're playing without 3 of their most important players, Chris Goulding, Shea Illy, and Joe Lual-Achul. But as we saw on Wednesday night, it's not really stopping them. They're still finding a way to win games. They had a really good win against the Hawks in Wollongong, and they had different guys stepping up. Mitch McCarron had a great game. Their Japanese little sensation, Uday Bubba's exciting. Jock Landale's playing some really good basketball as well. They're probably the deepest team in the competition, which is why they can handle having 3 guys out right now and still playing well. But at the same time, there's still 3 important players down. Is there a way the Taipans can take advantage of that?
Well, I think they've got to have their tails up. If we assume that Jerick's on the return and they end up have a full bill of health, then the United players are going to step up. But I think it's a great opportunity for the Taipans to maybe wear down some of their big contributors, and let's see if they can, with a bit of chess mindset, and work their way into a winning position. So if they've come off 4 good quarters, there's a lot of momentum there in the mindset. They know that everyone has to lift and everyone's frisky for more minutes, because now they know that Mike Kelly is going to reward good play. He's not just going to stick to the rotations, because it is backs against the wall time. So I think everyone's got a real good chance to have their tail up and be confident going into that game. I know it'll be a tough ask. I think that having that second scorer has proved very difficult for the Taipans, so they're going to have to get it done in a different way. So instead of outscoring the opposition, in the 90s, they're going to have to really defend a lot better and almost get a bit dirty, get in the grill of some of these opponents, and because that's kind of the way that they might be able to manufacture a bit of a blueprint of success this season. I don't think it's coming from the other way of outscoring and not relaxing on D, but it's not as important when you're scoring at ease with a new Bill and a Machado and a three-pronged attack. It's down to kind of your 2 big stars, Oliver and Machado, but it's going to have to be a collective defensive effort, and it starts with plays like Blagojevic's hustle plays, steals, effort areas, and going after the loose ball. So they're going to have to redefine their identity from last year, and I think they tapped into what that could be in that second New Zealand game. So I think this game is going to be a tough one for them, but I do think it's gettable without the Goulding and those little contributions of Achul, and it's a good challenge for them.
I think they can take a lot out of the first meeting against Melbourne too, even though that was a loss. I think if you reflect back to that game, Melbourne just couldn't miss in the first half. They were absolutely on fire shooting the ball. So if you assume they're not going to be able to do that again, and the Taipans finished that game when Machado took over in the 4th quarter and gave themselves a chance and had a real chance to snatch it at the end. So I think they can take a lot from that first game against them too.
Yeah, look, that first game and even the preseason game, I think United had kind of surprised them on how much they would all be together and sort of on that same page, even with a new marquee signing like Jock Landale. They were pretty well-oiled machine, and those stars, those veteran players would assist in that process, retaining that talent. That they're going to really lead all the new faces that come to the table. But I think the Taipans have learnt a lot, as you say. I think they have learnt a lot from those games and how their team is, how United moves and what their go-to kind of looks are. So I think that they've got a good chance to kind of perhaps stifle some of those offenses and disrupt as best they can with that knowledge of those prior games.
Now, even though this game isn't actually part of the NBL Cup and the bubble, you might know better than me, but I assume it doesn't make sense for the Taipans to come back and then go back. So I assume that they're now in Melbourne, and they'll go to Bendigo for this game, but they've now found their home in Melbourne, and they're going to be there for the next 5+ weeks. What do you think lies ahead in the NBL Cup? And I guess it starts a week early, considering they're in Melbourne already.
They're already down there, yeah. So this is an away game before the Cup. Is that correct? How you've sort of read it? Yeah. I mean, this is getting into sort of lockdown mode. You're gonna have to, and I'm sure the sports psychologist Jodie Guire is way ahead of the lads. She would be saying things like, "Look, we've got to accept the situation. We can't change it. We've got to as best we can." Decide how we're going to treat this. It's going to be along the lines of accept that it's going to be difficult, accept that you're going to be restricted with your ability to get out and have a coffee like you would normally do. So it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I know the motto of the league is expect the unexpected. Well, it's really going to grate on a lot of these players, especially the ones that really need that balance, that that work-life balance of being able to get out and exhale for a bit and either let their hair down or at least go grab a coffee in public. So it's really going to be quite restricted, and really the mentally strong players would be the ones that excel. The ones that really love their routine would probably excel. The ones that really need that mix up, they're probably the ones that are going to be struggling. And I reckon this might expose those players. They're not going to be able to handle it well, and mentally it's going to be pretty tough for a lot of these guys.
Now it's a fascinating setup to have another competition that's now run in the middle of your normal regular season, but now this NBL Cup still counts towards the actual NBL season, if you can get what I mean. So the way it works is the NBL Cup will have every team playing one another once, and then based on wins and losses and probably percentage, there'll be a winner that wins the NBL Cup, and they'll win $300,000. And then those wins and losses also count to the NBL regular season. What do you make of this whole thing?
Well, I mean, a cup is a very European thing to do, isn't it? I mean, in Europe, you've got these mid-season kind of cup, the King's Cup, a Euro Cup's a different thing. But when you have these little mini tournaments, and it's kind of little checkpoints, I guess, or weekend location things where all the teams will fly in, and I'm not sure what the financial sort of benefits are of it. Maybe it's an exciting thing that's worked in Europe, but it's definitely carrying those things over to here, like those sort of setups. So they're saying it's the inaugural one. Saying that they want to do it every year. No doubt that the Victorian government, it's a financial deal that they're trying to really benefit from it and show that they're trying and putting on a show and having a sporting spectacle in Melbourne. So I know that's the financial side of it. I know originally the points weren't going to count as championship points for the games, and it was just going to be something separate. And then they were saying that if the rest of the season gets sort of cancelled, then the points from the cup would count. And the teams are like, well, what are you talking about? Are you saying we're going to be playing games that don't matter to the season? And so then it sort of evolved from there, and now the cup counts, all the games count, and if for some reason COVID shuts everything down, then they'll just have to stop where they are and say, look,
I guess at least everyone's played each other at least once. I guess.
Everyone's played. Yeah, exactly. And then they can possibly either break and wait for finals or cut it off there and say, look, we've got our minor premier, and that's all we're doing. So, I mean, is it a good thing? I think it's a good thing for the NBL and for Melbourne. Is it a good thing for other teams? Well, not really. I mean, the fans don't get to see the games, even in Melbourne. And, a lot of these games are double headers where, 4 teams,
every day a game is played as a double header.
Yeah, and I think the fans will probably get a bit tired. I don't think there'll be packed houses. I don't think they'll be... trying to get to every game every day. The hardcore fans will, of course, but I just know that it'll get old quick for those same fans going to the same, the same games. So
especially
it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
I mean, it's not just a short-term thing. It's actually
no.
Yeah.
And if you do it every year, they've obviously, got plans of doing it next year. But I mean, the bigger picture for me is that this league has gone in leaps and bounds since obviously Larry Kesselman taking over the ownership. And, you've got to take your hat off to where he's taken this league. Like, there's absolutely no question. It's improved and progressed, and better players are coming in. Players are getting paid more. It's a lot more exciting, so much more athleticism, and its pathways to the NBA, which is exciting. And now I just heard that stat that Australia as a country has got more players in the NBA compared to any other country internationally that's got players in the NBA. So, wow. I mean, we're looking at a really cool time in basketball that all this is happening. And, the fact that the NBL is kind of at that forefront of, which leagues around internationally outside of the NBA are killing it, are doing well, are the places you want to be. Well, Australia is that league. The NBL is that league. And it's a tough league. And, players are enjoying coming down here and, enjoying the physicality. Young players, next stars, are coming through and enjoying getting that crazy hit of grown men's strength coming at them, trying to take their head off, and they've got to navigate that and still build successful careers themselves to then be draftable and all that kind of stuff. So it's a quality league, and it's being recognised. And I think Larry certainly deserves a lot of positive praise for what he's done with this league. So it's a really tough year of navigating these COVID sort of restrictions. Some of the things have been knee-jerk reactions in terms of, I think, dropping 3 imports down to 2 and the players' salaries and all that. I don't think that needed to happen back in March and April. I think they could have waited, that sort of thing. So that's kind of not what we're talking about right now. The actual NBL Cup, I think, looked like a positive thing at the time, certainly financially, because we didn't look like we were going to get any games anywhere, except maybe at a sort of a hub thing, which is what the NBA were doing. So that seemed to make sense. Now that regional areas, like Cairns and I was going to say Adelaide, but even then they've had their outbreaks. They seem to be okay to allow fans. The number of fans that we've had at the games seem to be okay. So would you need a cup per se,
it turns out right now we're able to play games in every city that has a team right now, except for New Zealand, obviously.
Maybe it turns into a 4 games only. Like instead of playing, each team at least once, maybe you're just playing 4 games, and it's a bit smaller cup. It still could be the NBL Cup, but maybe in future years it gets reduced down to, right, so it's not this big 5 or 6 week like mental, like absolute mind bomb thing. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we're here to enjoy hoops, and we're just lucky to get games. So for the fans, it'd be great to see just more NBL action.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show is proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio, less pain, more life, and Statton's Plumbing Company, plumbers who care.
Now, as a quirk, it starts on the 20th of February with the Taipans playing Melbourne United. On that very same day, the Boomers are playing the Tall Blacks, and that game's going to be in Cairns. It's quite obviously no NBL players are going to be part of that, so they've come up with a plan B.
Yep. No, they've got obviously all the players from the level below the NBL, and even the up and coming, even almost sitting in below that, like NBL 1 kind of level players or below, and all those centre of excellence guys. So I mean, Coach Adam Caporn, who was coaching obviously Mojave King, Giddy, and all those Aussie next stars that are coming through, and that worked alongside the NBA Academy. These players get their opportunity now. One name that does leap out just from my personal background was Marty Clark's son, Hunter Clark. So he's at the University of Montana, and his name's thrown in the mix. And I was like, oh, Hunter Clark, is that the guy? Is that the little toddler running around in nappies on the court at AIS days back in 2001? And I was like, oh, bloody hell, he's of the age now that he's in the Boomers for this Asian Cup qualifiers. But the coaches are great. So the assistant coaches up here, Kerry Williams gets a nod and joins the Australian Boomers. Like, how cool is that? You've got Indigenous representation that, he's earned a spot on the squad to help them through this thing. What an awesome opportunity. And then obviously Gordy McLeod as well. He's got a call up just to offer some guidance in that assistant coaching role. Guys that live in Cairns, those two live in Cairns obviously, and Adam Caporn, acquiring the positions to be filled and give them great insights. I just think it's really cool for Cairns and really great for, in particular, Kerry Williams. So, looking forward to that for sure.
And it's always exciting to have international basketball in town, and we're not going to be having the Taipans be able to play until at least mid-March, or sort of around the 20th of March probably is the next date that probably is possible. So it's a nice chance to go out and see some live basketball still as well.
Oh, I think the energy and enthusiasm will be like a college game. Like these guys will be getting up and down like it's like there's no tomorrow. They'll be, like the greyhounds getting loose out of the gate. They'll be off, and I reckon it might even get a bit crazy and reckless. But it's going to be a fast paced, awesome contest of international standard.
Yeah.
They're saying that it's just to check a box, but I think for the players it'll be worth a lot more than that. And I reckon there'll be a lot of interest for who's up and coming, and great opportunity for fans to get out and have a look.
Yeah, and it still counts towards qualifying for the Asia Cup, so the win will actually matter for these two countries as well, even though you'd expect they would both find a way to qualify. Now, all our focus though, Loughz, is on Saturday. Yep. I'm gonna wrap up the show. It's been a good show again this week. I've had fun, Loughz. We've gone on a few different tangents, but hopefully everyone has stuck with us. And some of your old war stories, Loughz, I could never get tired of hearing about, even though you might not like some of them, especially the ones that are
thanks for digging
forgettable.
Thanks for digging up those other ones too.
But yeah, been a good show. Thanks very much to Matt Smith, and thanks for the Taipans for winning on Monday night to give us such positivity to now go into this game against Melbourne on Saturday in Bendigo. I'm Chris Pike, and I'll sign off for this week and leave you with Alex Loudon.
Look, the guys are up against their biggest challenge yet. Melbourne United are, all guns blazing without a few of their stars. This is a great opportunity for the boys to really, really capitalise on their great performance of putting 4 quarters together and having multiple contributions. So looking forward to a great contest. I don't know which way it's going to go. I know it's a tough challenge, but we're right there with the lads, and we can't wait to see what shakes.